What's up, guys? Today we're checking out Azzuno's MIG 250F. Aside from looking really cool, this thing is loaded with features. I'm pretty excited. Let's check it out. So the 250F is basically the big brother to the Azzuno's 200. As you can tell by the name, that this is a 250 amp unit. It does also include a option for a spool gun. In this review, we're not going to be doing testing out the spool gun because we don't have one that's available, but we will be testing out the usual performance of the machine. We'll be doing a review of the overall build quality and full operation. All right, guys. So before I power this thing on, because the fan's kind of noisy, it's this. Let me say it first. This is not a fan on demand system, so it's going to be a constant fan running as soon as you hit the power switch. So just something to keep in mind before we hit the control panel. Let's just go through the inventory of everything. First thing is the owner's manual. So you get the owner's manual here, MIG 250F. So you get the manual, and you also get some tips in there, some hose clamps for your gas line. We'll get into that later because I can already see that this gas line's it's not a standard kind of gas line. So you get some rollers in here, 0.8, 0.9. So that translates to, I believe that's 30 and 35 thousandths. And you've got a 1.0 and a 1.2. Just off the top of my head, I might be wrong, but I think that's 40 and 45 thousandths, which is probably going to be for most of your soft metal, your aluminum stuff when you start running either the spool gun. This does not come with a spool gun. First off, let me say that, but it does come with a Teflon liner that allows you to push soft metal wire through the cable. So first off, let's check out the manual. Let's look it through. Okay, as you can see, it's a nice color manual. It's an inverter welder machine. It's got gas MIG, flux core, spool gun compatible, MIG stick, and lift TIG. And just gives a summary of the unit, what its intended purpose is, that it's a dual voltage capable, and 220 amp, maximum welding output, allows welding up to 15/64 inch steel. So right there, it's got a 220 amp maximum welding output. So I guess the 250F is kind of a misnomer based off of that, but anyhow, here's your inventory, the packing list. It goes through all your safety, dangers, technical specifications, your duty cycles, always good to know. This, if you're running it on 240 volt you got a 40% duty cycle at up to 220 amps, 0.8 power factor, and the 40% duty cycle, it I guess that's at max rated current. It doesn't say, it doesn't give different amperages and different duty cycles, which I think is, you usually see stuff like that. But here's all your different types of welding wire, and oh, here's our duty cycle. So yeah, you have a 60% duty cycle at 220 amps. Okay, and here's the breakdown of your duty cycles and an explanation of the on-off cycles that you have to follow without either over temping, overloading your machine, or burning something up inside. So always make sure that you follow those duty cycles as close as possible. And an explanation of your manual: everything's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's got basically like a legend or whatever. Each one gives you an explanation here of what each button does. Operational instructions for MIG mode, manual MIG, how to set up manual MIG, how to use the synergic function, your stick welding and lift TIG, installation setup and operation. Very detailed, very nice. Not that it's a big thing. It's not a big thing, but I think the 200, the Azzuno 200 was they went fancy, and they did all color photos and stuff in there, but that really doesn't matter. But I think I remember that, so I was kind of expecting the same in this manual, but not a big deal. Talks about setting the adjuster, the tensioner. You know, you have your tensioner on your spool, and you have your tensioner on your wire rollers. Both of those should have basically a slipping point, and that's where you want to have it adjusted just past that, so that if you exceed the amount of tension, something binds up in there. Depending on what's binding up, either your feed roller is gonna slip, or your spool's gonna cut that. And so here's all your information on your different spool diameters. You're going to run a 2-pound or a 10-pound, 11-pound, whatever, depending on the what you're running. The thickness, that will change, but it's either going to be a small 4-inch roll, I think it is, or the 8-inch big one. TIG torch setup, tungsten, how to dress up your tungsten, and different welding joints and troubleshooting. So it even gives you very hard to see electrical schematic in here, but they do include it. So if you are kind of curious about what what the internals are, what the circuitry is, how it's configured, you can always take a look at that. And here's a reference here. I don't know if you notice it, the door for the for accessing your wire, it doesn't have any information on there as far as, you know, your baseline parameters on where to set everything. So you're not going to want to lose, you don't want to lose this manual, because you're going to have to look back and reference this to try to get into that ballpark range where you can fine tune it. But yeah, it covers just about everything, different processes, the different gases, and the different metals. So overall, it's a nice manual. Just remember to hold on to it, put it somewhere safe. This is your MIG gun. Just looking at it, it looks almost identical, if not exactly the same as the gun that they use on the Azzuno 200F. Pretty sure, but we'll open that up and we'll check that out. Here's your stinger. This thing's about, like, I just call it standard issue. This thing, that's what you're going to expect to get, and I think it's more than adequate if you're going to be stick welding. So there's that, and that is, oh, one more thing. And the ground clamp. So we do have the ground clamp, standard issue ground clamp, and that completes everything for the inventory. So let's open up the torch, the gun, and see what this thing looks like. Okay, guys, so we got the MIG gun unpacked, and I'm looking at it, and yeah, this is basically the same. Pretty sure this is the same same gun that they use on the 200F, and you know, I didn't, when I did the review on the 200F, there's some things on here that I didn't really care for, and it was kind of like, just like the plastic is really cheap feeling, and little things like the lines, like the pieces not lining up exactly, and you can still see like pieces of plastic hanging off the castings or the molds, and it just has a lot of the earmarks of cost cutting, just kind of the stuff that you'll see on a cheaper torch or a cheaper gun, I guess, whatever you want to call it. It is a spring nozzle on here, and same thing here with the Euro connector. You know, everything inside, you're gonna have all the brass and stuff like that, but it's basically the casing and stuff like this. It's just cheap plastic. I mean, look, I'm going to turn it like this, and this part's coming off of here, and that's just like, you know, if you have to be docile with your connectors, you're not, you know, you're not working with something that's made to last. I mean, look at this here. That's just the case. That's how much it doesn't line up, is these pieces here. So, and I'm sure this just snaps together, and everything's retained that way, along with this collar here. But you know, aside from the all that as far as material wise. What I do remember on the 200, the gun itself, it performed just fine, and I think I mentioned that in the review, that the gun, as far as doing what its intended purpose, it did just fine. So I'd expect this one to do. Oops. I would expect this one to do the exact same thing and be able to do what it's made to do. But I do need to point out that this stuff is pretty cheap, and it may not stand the test of time. This isn't something that's going to last in a shop environment for sure. And if you're going to be working if you're planning on buying one of these, even if you're planning on buying one of these, even for like a small shop or a little quick fix section of your shop where you just want this little tiny machine, you might be ordering some replacement parts based off of what I'm seeing here. Okay, moving on. Here's a ground cable, ground clamp, exactly what you would expect to see in this price range. And I think this price range is somewhere between $300 and $400, if I'm not mistaken. So, and I should also say, in this price range, you're going to sacrifice some. If they're dumping, some of the costs of some of their costs, if they're dumping that towards good components on the inside, you're going to expect some compromise elsewhere. This is your gas line, okay? So it's a little bit different. You're going to have to, there's a barb fitting on the back, and so you have to figure something out with that, or find a hose that already has the correct adapters, or it's already configured to go from the barb fitting to your standard 5/8 fitting on your regulator. And if I didn't mention already, this is your Teflon liner that goes inside of your gun in the cable here, and it allows you to feed soft metal without worrying about it binding up in there, and that can cause a mess if it starts to back up into your rollers and stuff like that. So typically, if you don't have one of these and you are going to run aluminum through your standard MIG gun, you got to keep your cable like as straight as possible, and always be aware of if you're putting a big radius into your cable, because it can back up into your feed section there. So that's where these come in pretty handy, and it's a nice feature to be able to swap that out if you're planning to run aluminum through your gun. Next thing, let's check out the control panel. All right, guys, so let's check out this control panel. First off, one thing that I can already tell I don't like is that this here, it's like it's a flexible, you can probably see it. It's just a flexible kind of plastic protector on here, and that's not a good feeling. This, in my opinion, this should be some kind of impact resistant material, kind of something similar to like what you'll have on your helmet, or even something a little more stout. If I remember correctly, their 200 model had something that was it felt durable enough that it didn't catch my attention. I thought that the 200 was just laid out just perfect how they did their control panel on that one. So I'm not sure why they went with this kind of um, protective uh, barrier on here, because it's not like these aren't, you know, pressure sensitive or anything. I don't see any reason why they would have to have this kind of just flexible, uh, very thin lens on here, or whatever you want to call it, protective cover on here, because you know there's all kinds of things that could go wrong with this, as far as, you know, accidents do happen. And you know, if you're moving around and you got, say you got some say you are using the DC TIG function on here, and you've got 1/8 inch filler rod in your hand, and you just happen to turn the wrong way, and it just catches this here and catches it the wrong way, I could see this stuff getting damaged pretty easily. So I think that's in my opinion, that's a big negative right there. So if you do end up with one of these units, just be big cognizant of the fact that this thing is I don't know what to compare that to. I would compare it to the lenses that you would have in you know, those throwaway 3D glasses that you get at the theater. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Um, Anyhow, moving on. Let's get back into the functional aspect of this control panel. This is your mode button. It selects your process, um, and it also has, so the top one is your synergic MIG process, or synergic mode with your MIG process. The next one is your manual mode for MIG process. Next one is your uh, lift TIG, and the next one is your stick. Okay. Um, Today I may do both synergic and manual, and then like I said, we're going to do the spool gun. So let's move on to the next one here. Um, this selects your 2T, 4T, or spot welding. We're going to use 2T. Um, in case you don't know what 2T is, it's you you pull the trigger and you hold down the trigger, and it will be the unit will operate as long as the trigger is held down, and as soon as you let go, it will stop. 4T is for if you're going to do a long run. You'll click the trigger once. You can let off of it. You can just hold the gun, keep going, and then, excuse me, when you get to the end of your weld, you can click the trigger one more time, and um, it'll turn it off. So this it's basically, there's the number of actions involved uh, from start to stop, and so your 2T is going to be start, stop, and then your 4T is going to be start, stop. Okay. Next thing is your wire feed selection, and right now it'll only let me select one or 1, 2 because it's set for aluminum. I'm gonna do 100% CO2, and it's gonna be on 0.8, 30 thousandths. And then there's also this here. It says wire feed. Let me check the manual. I'll come right back on this. Okay, guys. So yeah, that's what I thought it was. So when you're gonna feed your gun, when you're doing your setup, you'll hold these two together, and then that right there's that's your inches per minute. You can see it shooting up, and it'll go into high speed, so it doesn't take so long to feed your wire through your gun. So that's always a cool feature. So thumbs up there, and I think it goes without saying that this right here is going to be your adjustments for. Let's go to manual. This is your manual adjustment for your voltage, and it does say it down here, voltage. And this is your manual adjustment for your inches per minute, your wire feed speed, and because this is metric, I believe that is in meters per minute. Okay, so keep that in mind. You're going to have to do a conversion there if you don't know right off the top of your head, or go by your reference back here. Okay, as we discussed, go by your reference and get yourself into a ballpark, and then uh, make slight adjustments from there. Okay, so when you're in manual mode, you can adjust to your liking your wire feed speed and your voltage. Um, if if you're new to the synergic function, so synergic is going to auto adjust um, based on where you set your amperage at. So if you set 180 amps, you go up to 200 amps, it's going to auto adjust it to where it says it needs to be, and then and it'll also make micro adjustments as you once you start welding. So that is the synergic function is a fully automated function once you do your initial setting. Okay, but you want to be pretty close to where you need to be when you set your amperage, and um, I think because it's everything's set up in metric here, I probably would just reference an amperage chart um, with the wire diameter and then the material thickness, and use that for my ballpark setting, and then just go into the synergic mode. Because when you are in synergic mode, you have plus or minus 3 micro adjustment. Okay, so you do have some slight adjustments, and um, that's for your personal preference. It could be for the demands of what you're doing on your for positional welding. Different positions might require a little more or a little less, a little more or a little less heat. So um, that's going to um, those different situations or preferences is going to determine where you set your micro adjustments to. Okay, let's move on to the lower section. Okay, guys, I killed the fan there, so I can just kind of save my voice here. So very simple, very basic. Um, the only difference that you're going to see here from the 200 model or from any other um, welder like this that does not have the spool gun function, everything's going to be about the same. You've got your connection here to determine whether you're going to be welding electronegative or electropositive, and then you've got your spool gun connector. That's for your on off when you're going to energize the spool gun, and when it's going to turn off is going to be controlled. Excuse me, is going to be controlled. Excuse me. Your spool gun is going to be controlled via that electrical connector there, that circuit, and then you have right here spool gun mode, standard mode. Okay, so that way you're letting the machine know that okay, I'm running a spool gun. This circuit's going to be active, and the wire feed system inside is going to be deactivated. And then vice versa, you go standard mode, this stuff's going to be rendered ineffective, and then you're going to be using your standard roller feeds. So I think that's it for the bottom there. Let's move over to the side and see what that looks like. Okay, so if you saw my video on the 200F, you heard me complain about this this spool setup here, because okay, if you're running your 2-pound spool, no problem. You throw it on there, slap this tensioner piece on there, spring, retainer, set it to where you want it so it won't bird's nest in there, so it's got enough tension. Okay, and you're good to go. You're good to go. All right, but then when you're running a 10-pound spool, okay, then basically what you have to do is you have to put the spool in here for one. You know what? Let me grab the spool. Let's toss it in there so I can give an example, because I'm going to be running this thing anyway. So 1 second. Okay, so as I was saying, you know, when you put that 10-pound spool in here, basically what you're stuck doing is you're taking your spool here, and you're stuck. You saw me talk about this in the 200 review. But first off, you put it on this little shoulder in here, and it's probably less than a 1/4 inch, but the shoulder, so you can't rest it. It's gonna fall off of there the minute you let go. Okay, but on top of that, you got all this slop. Okay, which that's not cool. But so you got to hold that in place, and then take this bad boy here, do this, and then put that on there enough to where it's sandwiched in there enough where it's got the proper amount of tension on there. Okay, and for some people, either one, you don't you haven't used other types of machines that have a proper setup in it, or it could be it could easily be the situation where you're like, hey, I only spent whatever $300-400 on this thing. I'm not expecting it to look like you know, like for a unit that costs twice as much. Okay, but it's to me, if you got so many other things right on a unit, and then you came short elsewhere, and that piece was only like a 5-cent piece or a 10-cent piece. I don't know how much it cost them over there. I assume the stuff's made in China, so if it costs less, let's just say it costs less than $1, okay, to make a proper hub to go in here, that would have been worth it. I think anybody who's used to using a machine with the proper setup would be happy to spend the extra $1 to have this component, which is it affects two things. One, it affects the tension on here, okay, so that this thing doesn't turn too fast, and then loosen up your spool in here, because if say you're doing your high speed feed on here, and this thing starts going pretty fast, and then it stops, you could go like this, and then basically it could loosen up some of your wire in here. And if you're running it, say you're doing small beads, you're just doing 1/4 inch stitches, okay, and so you're going on, off, on, off. Every time you do that, if you don't have the proper amount of tension on here, and it's just boom, 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 that's where it helps to have the right kind of hub. This right here, this actually feels like it probably has too much, because you don't have a proper hub in here. Okay, like I said, all you're working with here is a spindle, and that's all well and good if you're running a small spool. Okay, let me grab a small spool. I'll throw it on there real quick. Okay, guys, so here's your small spool. Here's your little hub thing there. Okay, fine. Okay, good deal. I mean, you can crank that down whatever you want it to. Okay, you have enough tension on there for the drive rollers to do what they need to do, and you know you're not gonna start loosening up your wire on here. Okay, so if you're just running these small spools all day, no complaints. Good. But what I'm trying to get at is that I think let me look. I think I have a hub sitting around here. Okay. So if anybody out there doesn't understand what I'm talking about when I'm complaining about this thing not having a proper hub, this right here is a proper hub. Okay, this is out of a Hobart. Excuse me. This thing is out of a Hobart. Okay, and this is a hub for a 10-pound spool. Okay, so a 10-pound spool, you've got your locator pin. You slide your spool on here. Okay, and this doesn't have all that slot that one has, and then you tighten that down, and then your spool doesn't turn. It doesn't turn on the spool. Everything spins on your hub, and then your hub will have the tightener, the tensioner in here. Okay, and that will tension it down, and that's when you have a proper hub. So that's what I'm talking about having the right setup in there, something that's going to last. See, it won't fit on there. It almost fits on there, but then even if it fit on there, this shaft on here, the spindle is way too short. So it'd have to come out probably another ½ inch or so, 3/4 inch. I'm sure it's possible. You know, you could do the modification. You'd have to shave a little bit off the inside of here, and then you can get this to slide on there. You'd want this to be able to spin on here nice and smooth, and then you could put your tension on the actual hub. You could slap your 10-pound spool on here, and you could have a proper setup. So I'm not telling anybody to do that. Okay, this is just something that I just kind of was looking at, and I was like, hey, yeah, you probably could do that. So anyhow, back on track. These hubs, okay, these are like $10 or something, okay, for whether it's for a Hobart or a Miller-Matic, and probably other models out there. And that's what the price adjustment of getting it through one of those guys, and or whatever the markup is that they put on it. I'm sure there's other versions out there, and if the manufacturer, these guys, if Azzuno wanted to make one of their own like this, I'm sure they could do it at a fraction of the cost. And I think most consumers out there, anybody who's looking to buy one of these units, would pay the extra $2 or something to have the right setup in here for their spool. And so that's that. I think I've said my piece on that, and hopefully that helps anybody out there who's getting their first machine. Hopefully it gives them some insight um, of if anybody else is out there, if you got a new owner of the and this is their first, if you got somebody out there that this is their first welding machine, and they're frustrated with all this and it's such a headache, hopefully this, just showing this, will give you some insight and let you know that, you know what, this is how it really should be. It should be nice and easy. You should be able to just slap on the bigger spool in there, hit your tensioner, and then just rock out and just go. But something to keep in mind. And okay, that's it for the for the side. You know what? I might as well go ahead and feed some wire through here, and then we'll get everything set up with the gun. Okay, guys, I'm just gonna show off the fast feed function on here. I actually already started doing it, and I was like, you know what? Let's show off the fast feed function, the triple F. Let's just see how it does. So you'll see the speed increase up here, and you'll also see a corresponding increase on the spool. All right, there it is. All right, nice. Always like that function. That's always a nice feature to have. So good deal. Let's get this thing set up. Get the tip and the nozzle put back on, and we'll set up some 3/16 or 1/4 inch steel and see what we can come up with. All right, there it is, folks. The Azzuno MIG 250F. This is the big brother to the Azzuno MIG 200F. It brings some new features to the table, including the spool gun capability, higher amperage capability, and a couple of nice little features like the arc in speed. Um, that's the adjustment to reduce the initial feed speed, so the wire doesn't hit the workpiece um, so hard. According to the book, that's going to give you like a softer initiation of once you initiate the spark. Different screen, different setup. Um, I had my own opinion on that. I honestly I don't like this screen in comparison to the 200. I think I said it on the review video for the 200. I think they really like they hit a home run. Like that was the highlight of that unit, was that whole front panel, just because just the layout and the uh, the indications on there, they all seem really nice, good quality. Knobs and everything felt good on that one. This one wasn't like um, a huge drop. I think the knobs and everything were just fine. on here, but so yeah, but the protective screen on there, that whole whatever that is, it doesn't give you a good feeling. It doesn't give me a good feeling. I think you know, the first hit with a filler rod, you hit that thing with, like I said, with the 3/32 or 1/8 inch filler rod, steel rod, or even stainless. I think you're gonna puncture this thing here. Even if you slip up with the gun and you have, you know, 35,000 sticking out of there, and somehow it hits that screen, it's not going to fare well. I think they should have come up with something a little bit better than that. There's all kinds of alternatives out there that they could have used. So the screen, I think they should have done better on that. Um, I think I mentioned it. The gun's the same as the 200F. I didn't really have great things to say about the gun. Um, it gets the job done, okay. But how long will it get the job done for if you're using it um, the way that you should be able to use these machines? Like I said, this uh, this stuff, it, it feels like toy plastic. So that's something you might roll the dice on with that. And that is just the housing, the casing for the Euro connector and the gun. I'm sure that stuff is replaceable. The cable for the gun is just fine, and it was just those components that the plastic felt really cheap, and the spool setup in here. It's basically, I had the same gripes as the 200F because it is exactly the same as the 200F. It's I've never seen a spool setup like that, and so when I first saw that, I was like, you got to be kidding me! Is this for real here? But yeah, that's what they want you to use, and all in all, it will work. Obviously, it's it's putting out wire, and it's making welds, but um, that was with doing a lot of adjustments. I did different adjustments. I did stringer beads, pull. I did some weave patterns. I pushed. Um, did so like I said, single pass. I did double pass, and you know, this was all within probably a 15-minute time period, maybe even less. So if you did buy this machine and you spent a good day, you got yourself a whole lot of um, different pieces of metal, different thicknesses, and you got it dialed in. You know, you write down your settings because nothing's written down in here. You got to refer to the manual chart, which is everything in there is it's metric. Um, so I think if you know, you took the time, you dedicated a day to this, maybe a half day, you got yourself a good amount of scrap metal, different thicknesses, and you got it dialed in, and you recorded where your settings were at. Slap that on the inside of here, and you might be a-okay. You might be good to go. I adjusted it as much as I could. I adjusted it as much as I think you should have to if you're gonna just grab a machine and you got to use it. You really shouldn't have to spend a half a day getting it dialed in. Um, but that might be the case with this unit. So just keep that in mind. Um, but overall, I think Azzuno could have done better on this. They, of course, they got to deal with the price range that you're putting this in, but um, you also got to consider. I've got a review on the tool their 250M, I think. So that unit's probably $50 to $100 less than this, and they actually went the extra mile, and they did a proper setup for the spool. The gun, hands down, is better than this. I mean, like I said, this feels like a toy. You grab the tool IM gun, um, especially the one on the 250. The 250 is actually really nice, and that one you feel like almost like you're using um, a professional level machine, or at least something that you might find um, in an industrial setting. I think overall this unit will be good for a hobbyist. Okay, if you're a little bit more than a hobbyist, like I said, you're gonna want to spend some extra time getting this thing dialed in so that you can you can nail the type of weld that you're going for. And you know, if you're more than a hobbyist, you're gonna wanna spend the time and get the welds that you're happy with. So, but if you're just you know just a homeowner or something like that, and you're gonna weld a broken thing here and there once every 3 months or something, or once every 6 months, you'll be perfectly okay with this. I think you'll be perfectly okay with um, with the smaller unit. You know, most people aren't going to need a 250 amp unit for just doing household stuff. Um, but yeah, I think that's about it for this. Anything that I didn't cover in this video, you will be able to find it on the 200, because this machine has so many things in common with the 200. They basically carried over 50 or 60% of the 200 into this unit. So, but aside from that, I think I covered everything. Um, as always, thank you for watching. Take care.